The first morning her son stood at a Jamaican school assembly, an American mother pulled out her phone to film it. Not because it was strange. Because she knew that back home, nobody would believe her. This video isn't about beaches, or jerk chicken, or a nice vacation photo in front of a waterfall. This is about what actually happens to a child's mind the moment they walk through a Jamaican school gate, the discipline, the ritual, and one line from Jamaica's own education minister that changes how you'll see all of it. By the end of this video, you'll know why Jamaican children can recite a national pledge before most American kids can tie their shoes. You'll know why some American parents are genuinely stunned by the discipline. And you'll understand why, after the worst hurricane in the island's history, getting kids back into that morning lineup was treated like an emergency, right alongside rebuilding the roof. Welcome to Trailora, where Jamaica meets the world. Every week we uncover the hidden stories, global events, and surprising truths shaping Jamaica, the Caribbean, and beyond. If you caught our video on what Americans notice the second they land in Jamaica, or our full Jamaica versus America school comparison, you already know the surface is only half the story. Today, we go past the gate. Let's start with the small stuff. Because the small stuff is where it begins. Number 5, the sock. That's the word one American mother, we'll call her Denise, a Jamaican-born woman raised in Florida who moved back to St. Elizabeth Parish with her 10-year-old son Malik, used to describe her first morning at his new school. Not the anthem. Not the prayer. A sock. She watched a teacher stop a boy at the gate, kneel down, and point at his shoes. Scuffed. Wrong color laces. He was sent to the office to call home before he was allowed to line up with his class. Shirt tucked. Tie straight. Hair inspected. Badge pinned exactly where it belonged. Every single morning, before a single lesson starts. Back in Florida, Denise says a teacher touching a student's uniform like that would trigger a parent complaint before lunch. In Jamaica, it barely gets a second look. This isn't about vanity. It's an entry ritual. It's the school telling every child, every single day, you are stepping into something structured now, and whatever chaos you left at home stays at the gate. Denise thought that was the biggest culture shock she'd face that week. She had no idea what was coming next. Number 4, the discipline question nobody warns you about. Here's where it gets uncomfortable, so let's be honest about it. Some American parents who've relocated their children to Jamaican schools have alleged something they never expected to deal with: physical punishment. Earlier this year, the Jamaica Observer reported on a Canadian mother whose 2 sons, she claims, were struck by teachers at their new school, allegations serious enough that Jamaica's Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPFSA, opened an investigation. It's a real, ongoing debate on the island. Jamaica's own National Violence Prevention Commission has recommended a total ban on corporal punishment. The government has said, publicly and repeatedly, that it's committed to reforming the law. But as of right now, the practice hasn't been fully outlawed, and older colonial-era statutes around physical discipline still technically sit on the books, unrepealed. Now, before you assume this makes Jamaica the outlier, sit with this for a second. Right now, in 2026, 18 U.S. states still legally allow corporal punishment in public schools. It remains lawful in private schools in 48 states. Only 2 states in the entire country ban it in both public and private schools combined. So if you're watching this from Texas, or Mississippi, or Georgia, the debate happening in Jamaica right now is one your own school district may already have settled, in the exact same direction Jamaica hasn't gotten to yet. Most schools Denise looked at, including Malik's, have already moved away from that entirely, using demerit systems, detention, and mandatory parent conferences. She picked one of those. But she says walking into that first parent orientation, not knowing which kind of school she'd find, was the most nervous she'd felt about a school decision in her life. What she saw once assembly actually started had nothing to do with punishment at all. It had to do with pride. Number 3, they know the words. All of them. Long before algebra, long before a single spelling test, Jamaican children are expected to know something by heart that most American 10-year-olds have genuinely never seen: a national pledge, a national anthem, and a psalm from the Bible, word for word, standing at attention. Every morning, heels together, hats off, the whole yard rises for Jamaica, land we love. Then comes the pledge: before God and all mankind, I pledge the love and loyalty of my heart. And then, in most schools, Psalm 100, recited in unison, in one voice, by hundreds of children who've said these same words since they were 4 years old in basic school. Malik's first morning, he mumbled through it, half a beat behind everyone else, eyes on his shoes. Denise watched him from the fence, embarrassed for him, bracing for him to ask to go back to Florida that same afternoon. 2 weeks later, he was leading his row. Psychologists have a name for what daily rituals like this actually do. They call it an identity anchor. It's not just tradition for tradition's sake. It's a repeated, physical, collective act that tells a child exactly who they are and where they belong, every single day, before they've even opened a textbook. And it's part of why Jamaican students, even from the poorest, most under-resourced schools on the island, consistently describe an intense sense of national pride that a lot of American classrooms simply never build into the school day at all. But belonging is one thing. What happens when you actually look at the numbers coming out of these schools? That part surprised even Denise. Number 2, the numbers that don't say what you think they say. On the OECD's most recent PISA exam, the international test given to 15-year-olds in reading, math, and science, Jamaican students scored well below the global average across the board. If you stopped there, you'd walk away thinking the story is simple: American system good, Jamaican system struggling. That's not the full picture, and here's the twist. The gap in performance between Jamaica's richest students and its poorest students is dramatically smaller than the gap in the United States, and smaller than almost anywhere else in the OECD's data. In plain terms, a poor child in a rural Jamaican parish and a wealthier child in Kingston score far closer to each other than a poor and a wealthy child do in most American school districts. Wherever you land on the island, richer or poorer, the ceiling and the floor sit closer together than they do back home. There's a second twist buried in the same data. Jamaican girls are outperforming boys in both math and reading, by a wider margin than in almost any other country tested. In a lot of the world, boys still lead in math. In Jamaica, it's flipped, and it isn't close. Denise says she expected Malik to walk in ahead academically, coming from an American public school. Instead, she watched him struggle to keep up in a system that pushes mastery over speed, that won't let a student move on until a concept is actually locked in. It humbled her. It also challenged her assumption that more resourced automatically means further ahead. None of that, the uniforms, the discipline debate, the anthem, the test scores, prepared her for the morning it all nearly disappeared completely. Number 1, the morning the roof was gone. On October 28, 2025, Hurricane Melissa made landfall in western Jamaica as a Category 5 storm, the strongest hurricane ever recorded to hit the island directly. If you saw our full breakdown of Melissa's aftermath, you already know the scale. Hundreds of schools across Jamaica were damaged or destroyed. Roofs torn open. Floodwater through the corridors. Textbooks and uniforms gone. Nearly 500,000 children across the Caribbean had their schooling disrupted almost overnight. Malik's school in St. Elizabeth lost its roof. For weeks, there was no assembly. No anthem. No lineup at the gate checking socks and collars. Just silence, and a schoolyard full of debris where children used to stand every morning. Then the tents went up. UNICEF donated dozens of heavy-duty, classroom-sized tents to schools across western Jamaica, each one split into 2 makeshift classrooms. Kids rotated in on a shift system, some days at school, some days learning from home with printed learning kits because there simply wasn't room for everyone at once. Within roughly 90 days, by the government's own account, a recovery timeline they call unprecedented for a storm this size, every single school in Jamaica had reopened in some form. Here's the line that reframes everything you just watched. Jamaica's education minister has stated publicly that studies in Jamaica show children feel safer at school than they do at home, or in their own communities. So when Melissa hit, getting children back into that morning assembly, tent or no tent, heat and noise and all, wasn't treated as a nice-to-have. It was treated as urgent as fixing the roof itself. Denise stood outside the tent months after the storm and watched Malik recite the same pledge, the same anthem, the same psalm he'd mumbled through on his very first day. No hesitation this time. Steady, unbothered by the heat, unbothered by the noise of two classrooms sharing one tent. And that's when she finally understood what all of it had actually been for. Not the uniform checks. Not the discipline. The ritual. It was the thing that gave her son somewhere steady to stand, even when the building around him was gone. So, would you want your child standing at attention every single morning, reciting a pledge and a psalm before a single math lesson even starts? Or do you think that kind of structure has no place in a modern classroom? Tell us which one you'd choose, and why, in the comments. And if this changed how you see Jamaica's school system, go watch our full Jamaica versus America comparison next, because what you just saw is only one piece of it. I'll see you in the next one.